right, hello and welcome to the Poker Central podcast. We are live on YouTube. First and foremost, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel. We are live every single Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, or 9 p.m. Central European time. I am once again joined by Brent Hanks. Brent, a lot of serious topics today on the show. I'm going to cue them up. We're going to get to it, but also I feel like it's also time for some comedic relief in these strange times, as I might add. We're going to talk about the coronavirus. A lot of events are being canceled. We're going to take a serious look at what this means for poker, for the poker events coming up in the next few months. We're also going to have an amazing hand from High Stakes Poker Season 1 between Sammy Farha and Barry Greenstein. It's a classic. It's Aces versus Kings. You guys have all seen it before. We're going to run the clip for you guys.
Aces versus Kings?
Aces versus Kings.
Wow.
That is the ultimate clash of poker hands. We're going to break it down. We're going to get deep into that hand as well. And then we're going to, give Brent 5 more things to respond to that might get a little hot and juicy, and we're going to talk about the what did Will Jaffe say? The state of live poker.
We're going to have a tough conversation.
We're going to have tough conversation
with Will Jaffe. Yeah, I wanted to get him live on this show, but
right.
I couldn't get his number.
Are you?
Nobody would give it to me.
Are you now a private game player? Should we worry about that?
I may dabble in reserved gaming, please,
Wow.
Remko. Let's not the P word.
The P word.
Nothing is private.
Okay.
It's reserved gaming, and
Right.
I'm considering dabbling myself.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, the thumbnail of the show got you to click on this link, so that's also the topic we're going to start off with.
It also looks like it upset somebody. Jeff H.
Yeah.
in chat at Images in Bad Taste. Jeff, totally, man. I mean, we're not, we're not out here to try and make fun of the coronavirus by any means, but I don't know about you, Remko, but I'm wired.
Yeah.
Whenever something is bad, I try and at least find a way to smile, and I can still acknowledge that horrible things are happening.
For sure. I slept in 2-hour increments last night. And
Why?
I was just so rattled. I was in a deep rabbit hole reading about the coronavirus, how it's spreading here locally in Las Vegas and in the U.S., and it just kept me up. Italy's in a full shutdown. There's so much going on right now that it's really, I think, important to be well informed, and I think precaution is the first and the smallest thing that we can do, and I guess being careful in that sense is just something that goes without saying, right?
Right. No, I'm with you. And wash your hands, take care of your loved ones. I've got 2 young children at home, 4 and 2 years old.
Right.
It's no joke, I'm scared about that. We all have parents, or hopefully we still have parents or grandparents that are still alive, and if you do, those are certainly folks to be worried about.
Right.
I'm not laughing at this stuff.
No, for sure not. But I also think that there is also still a time for some comedic relief, and hopefully we can bring both some information and some fun along the way as we do this podcast here. Brent, let's dive into how this affects events now in real time. South by Southwest was canceled. There's major sporting events getting canceled.
Yeah.
Is this sort of leading up to, and let's not tackle it just now, to the World Series of Poker getting canceled? How are you viewing these things that are happening right now?
I'm not even going to try and speculate
Right.
what's going to happen with the World Series, what's going to happen with all these tours. But what I can tell you is just this week,
Yep.
in fact, a couple things today came out. PokerStars has canceled a handful of events. Will that affect the players, the championship series, right? The PSPC
Yeah.
in Barcelona? I don't know.
Yeah.
They haven't said anything about it, so we don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that. But they certainly have canceled a handful of events. Party Poker announced that Cyprus Millions has not been canceled, but it's been postponed until, I believe, August.
Yes.
They're moving it back on the calendar.
And it was supposed to be, I believe, in end of April, May region, so they moved it a few months up.
Right. So, the fact that PokerStars has done it, Party Poker has done it, you have to imagine that the folks over at the World Series of Poker are having these tough conversations, if you will. Shout out Will Jaffe. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear something in the news this week, next week, week after. Who the hell knows what their plan is? Certainly I don't, you don't. But what we can use are the examples around us.
Right.
That leads us to sports, right?
Right.
The Ivy League, college basketball. Big fucking deal in March. March Madness. They canceled their entire tournament, their conference tournament. That, I believe, that's a precedent. I think that's going to set an example perhaps for some other leagues.
And those are smart people too, right?
Well, arguably, Remko, the smartest. Yeah, it's the Ivy League. I know you're not American, but those are intelligent folks, Remko, unlike yourself as well as myself. The world of sports, this article that came up on sportingnews.com and all these other things that have happened. March Madness, we just talked about. The Ivy League Division III tournament. they've completely been canceled. Division III is another tier here in the States, Remko. Chicago State Division I basketball and their men's and women's team, they have canceled the rest of the regular season. They're completely done with sports. Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, MLB, you cannot get inside the locker room right now.
Right.
They've completely barred anyone from getting inside the locker room, so they're protecting their players. They're protecting the rest of us as well. The list goes on and on. ATP, the tennis tour, they canceled an event. It's happening. If we don't think that the World Series is at least considering it,
right.
I think you're probably a fool. I don't know what's going to happen. All these folks that have money on the line, 20-1 odds, 12-1 odds. Certainly, you're feeling a little bit better if you've got the long shape there. I don't these assholes that are betting on it, Remko. But,
right.
It's inevitable that some sort of conversation is going to occur.
Absolutely. For the people who are watching right now live as we're doing this show, let us know in the comments if you think the World Series of Poker should still carry on as usual, or if you think, and if you're leaning towards, maybe it's better to postpone, or perhaps it's time to cancel. I think canceling is, of course, a big word because there is still room on the calendar probably to move this thing a little bit. I think Vegas tourism has taken a hit already here right off the bat. I think that people aren't as inclined to travel around. It's a very strange situation because of how quickly everything is spreading.
Yeah.
And we've seen the examples in South Korea and Italy and Indonesia. And let's just also be very, very clear. Brent and I are not knowledgeable on how this stuff works or how any of this stuff goes. We've just been reading up and trying to be as well informed as possible to give you guys sort of, a taste of the news from the Las Vegas perspective. Brent, reading off this whole list, it just makes me feel as though it's just a matter of time before we hear about major cancellations in the poker world.
It just feels like it's only just begun, for the United States. So obviously, we know that the entire country of Italy is on a lockdown.
Right.
60 million people.
Yeah.
Lockdown. They took it very seriously in China, which luckily it's looking like things are shaping up a little bit better there in China. But that sort of culture, that sort of country, they could shut it down. I don't know if it works. Can we do a total shutdown in the United States? I don't know, Remko. I'm not even going to begin to speculate what our government is up to or even considering along those lines. But I said it last week, and I'll say it again confidently, and I'm obviously this stinks.
Yeah.
I think the numbers for the World Series of Poker, the turnout, will inevitably be, in the modern era, remarkably lower.
Right.
I don't know if we're going to have a lot of folks traveling from international to play in the events, let alone, and I believe it's 70-80% of all folks that participate in the World Series of Poker are Americans.
Yeah.
I have to imagine that a handful, no way are they planning on coming out this summer. Yeah. So, we'll see.
Mustafa Kanit just tweeted that Winamax has canceled their event in Madrid. So, we're just getting more and more updates. There was an alleged case in the Bay Area that's now having all their events canceled in the Bay Area. Like, I think NHL games are being canceled, all stuff like that. Brent, are you less inclined to even visit a poker room in Vegas these days? Just because of this, or do you think it's too early to be that dramatic about it?
I mean, I don't know. It's sort of my personal stance on this.
Yeah, of course.
I personally, because I have younger children at home that I'm first and foremost concerned about, and not to be selfish in any way, but to me it makes sense that if you're putting yourself in an environment, in an airport, in a casino, then you're being irresponsible because you may not affect yourself.
Right.
I might not get sick, but I could still hurt other people that I come in contact with. So I think for me, I'm just going to avoid, especially older folks, avoid being around them. Not that I am too often, but shaking hands, being at least wary and concerned of other folks that I could be affecting in my life.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think just being cautious and careful is just the way to go because that doesn't hurt anyone. Being cautious about this, right? I feel like people are on all sorts of sides of the spectrum, but I think that following the news is probably the best thing you can do, and find some good sources on your information, and especially depending on where you are in the world, this might impact you a lot differently depending on what your locale is.
Yeah, shout out to the chat, by the way. Eric Anderson, Spanish flu is back. I don't think so. Let's hope not, pal. Robbie, card player lifestyle. Robbie, just get your name in there. That's hard to say, that whole title. He says it'd be radical for the World Series to do anything right now. Maybe that's right. Maybe we take a little bit more time to figure it out. Shout out Mendo Bruce, David White. See you out there in the chat.
Yeah, I think that Robbie makes a good point because the World Series of Poker doesn't start until June. The cancellations we're hearing about now from events, those are happening in April. So, sure, we are still further away from the World Series than we are from March Madness, for instance, or, the Ivy League tournament that's starting, next week or something.
Right.
So from that perspective, I can see that reasoning. I also think that the World Series of Poker is probably closely monitoring other events surrounding the World Series of Poker, perhaps in Vegas, perhaps on the U.S. West Coast. And at the end of the day, it's a waiting game. All we can do is every day wait and hope for the spread to be contained and hopefully hope for some good news. People are saying that the warm weather in Vegas is going to slow this down. I'm not a scientist. I don't know if that's true, but if that's the case, then, Vegas might be better off than other places.
Now, I did go down the wormhole and read about, this, again, from scientists, doctors, or whatever, and who the fuck knows who's right or wrong in this instance. But the Spanish flu, again, shout out to Eric Anderson. You dropped that as a joke, I think. But that is a good example of, yes, it died off during the summer months, but then it came back and spiked during the fall months.
Oh, really?
So we're not even really forecasting what the turnaround time would be after the warm air months. And again, no idea if that's going to happen. No clue whatsoever. Clearly, Remko, I am not a doctor, and I am a dumbass.
Isn't that what they say in those
But
commercials?
I did read the charts,
Right.
and I was looking into it, and I saw this like, holy shit, we haven't even come close to our peak season here in the United States. But we haven't really thought about the fall season yet either when it comes back, the winter season.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll keep a close eye on everything that's developing. If big news comes out, we'll be sure to mention it here on the podcast. There's just so many poker tournaments and tours happening that it's impossible to cover all of them, but just stay informed on the events that you're wanting to play, things you want to travel to, and if you do travel, be careful and take the necessary precautions and just be prepared and be aware of what's happening. When people are saying like this is just the flu, do your own research and do some digging and some reading for some reputable sources. It doesn't hurt to be well informed. That's
shout out, by the way, Orp the Turk in the chat.
Oh, is he really?
He said he's now won't be able to triple his live earnings. I predicted that this is going to be the year of Orp the Turk as far as the live poker scene was concerned.
Okay.
And, he's probably right. If he's not going to be traveling around anymore, and I certainly don't blame him for some of these events, a little bit concerned about the health. Damn it. I mean, shout out Orp the Turk, by the way. Thanks for joining us on this show.
I mean, Orban, if you're watching, this is just going to open up, more room to be studying and grinding and be ready for, when the big events are happening. I think that's the way to go. And in line with that thinking, Brent, is this going to help online poker in some strange way? Are we going to see people be more active in advocating for the return of online poker? As insane as that sounds, is this going to be the catalyst?
It's a reasonable take.
I mean,
it's a reasonable take. If you look at the market, obviously, Jesus Christ, is that getting pounded?
Yes.
But some of the stocks that were up were all of the major grocery stores and food labels and whatnot. I believe it was the Zoom tech for mobile meetings, conference meetings, because a lot of industries that if you're eligible, if you can stay home, folks are staying home, setting up all these meetings on Zoom. So maybe online poker could get a little bit of a boost in a very sick and twisted way.
I mean, you and I are quarantined here in the little studio. This might be the safest place for us to be. And speaking to you people at home who are very far away but still in touch with us, I think online poker is a very reasonable thing to do when you're at home trying to avoid being in a massive poker room. So
yeah, John in our chat, shout out John, said that the Slack stock is doing well too. So everything that you can invest in as far as that department, I think people are making money. The folks getting crushed, airlines are just going to they're getting destroyed right now. Oil companies, gas companies. I mean, we're going to be paying probably record low for gas to fill up your truck at the expense of what's happening, with this virus.
It's so bizarre. It's so hard to even comprehend how we were following this news from the sidelines when it was happening in China, and now it's at our doorstep. And people still really don't know how to handle it. And we've seen countries tackle this in a variety of ways. And I really just wonder what's going to happen and how the U.S. is going to tackle this. I guess we'll just stay informed and stay on the topic. If people have any...
Have they started testing yet in the United States? We didn't have tests, right?
Yeah.
But now it looks like we might have them.
I guess they couldn't see it coming.
So we don't even know really how bad it is here?
No.
Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say that the... data in the U.S. is not as accurate as it could have been if we had more testing.
All right.
I mean, Daniel Negreanu has had some strong takes on Twitter, and
a lot of poker players are experts in the field.
Right? Yeah, experts
Experts
on crypto and on.
It's remarkable, really, and I do think logic and reason.
Right.
Poker players are always in that mindset for the most part. But my God. Medical experts now as well.
Yes,
it's pretty remarkable.
What do you think of? I've spoken to some people that I consider smart, and they said that they fully stocked up. The freezer is full. They bought extra pasta. They got the toilet paper on Amazon. What do you think about that approach?
I think if you can afford and you're able, based on your profession, to stay at home, there's no downside to that.
Right.
You're eliminating risking yourself from picking up the virus. You're not going to be harming others. If you can afford that luxury, have at it. For normal folks like myself, I've got a job to do. I have to go to work. My wife's a public school teacher. We don't have the luxury of just like saying, okay, well, we're going to stay home and just work from home and our kids will be just fine.
Yeah.
So if you can, good for you, because I think you're doing other folks a good deed in that regard.
Right. All right. Please let us know in the chat how you feel about this entire situation. You probably have some thoughts and some takes on this. We'd love to hear from you guys. Also, if you catch this on demand, leave a comment below with your thoughts. We're gonna, keep talking about this in the weeks to come, because obviously there's going to be a lot more news to cover. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up on this video. That really helps the channel. It helps our videos, and we're trying to, build this out into something
Share
great.
it.
And
share the show with your mother.
Yes. She probably loved to.
Specifically your mother.
Or your local home game. That's also a possibility. Brent, we have a big hand to discuss on the podcast. I don't want to get stuck for 45 minutes into the coronavirus rabbit hole. Let's talk about some poker action. High stakes poker is back.
Yes.
We've already established that.
Yeah, it is.
You are deep in the lab as it pertains to lineup building. And please let us know in the chat which players you want to see on high stakes poker, because that is a real thing.
Oh boy, and Remko, I can tell you one thing.
You have names?
I was contacted by a player this weekend that has expressed interest and would like to play in high stakes poker. Holy shit. Please, for the love of God, let this happen.
Okay.
I'm all paranoid about the virus stuff.
Oh boy.
I'm so pissed off if this doesn't come to fruition. I am not going to say the name, but my God, just let it happen, Remko. Please, just thoughts and prayers. Send them my way specifically.
Yes,
because of this.
We need to pray for the poker audience that this actually comes to fruition. But what I want to get to here on this segment is a hand from season 1. As every week going forward, we will have a hand from either high stakes poker or have something like an old World Series of Poker hand on the show for us to discuss and then for you guys to enjoy. And this week, the hand we picked is between Sammy Farha and Barry Greenstein. Brent, tee this one up for us. Do you recall where you were at in your life when this was first playing out?
What year?
I think it was 07.
Okay, so I was prepping to move to Las Vegas. I was in full online grind mode, living essentially at my parents' house at the time, and I can remember being up way too late at night during season 1 when this happened. That's exactly it. That's the scene for me, Remko.
Okay. So the hand you're about to watch is the hand from season 1, Sammy Farha versus Barry Greenstein. We're going to leave our mics running, so we're going to provide some extra commentary as you guys watch this hand. So please enjoy this with us, and let us know where you were at when this went down, because obviously this is a massive moment in poker history.
And Barry catches the dream hand right before bedtime. Raises to $2,500.
And oh my goodness, Sammy Farha has picked up a pair of kings.
Wow.
Kings against aces, the last hand of the night, and the two right guys to have them.
10 more. And Farha re-raises to $12,500.
All of Sammy's hard work for this entire night is in jeopardy here.
I mean, let us know in the chat if you've ever folded 50 before the flop.
Barry raises $50,000, and he's got Sammy covered. He's got more chips than
This is
Sammy.
the last hand? Are you serious?
Look at that last hand.
Last hand?
The cigarette. I mean,
Wow. How much more better you have? I can't
just
see.
tremendous.
It's about 200?
At 190 when the hand started.
190 when the hand started.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. Who shuffled? You did or the dealer?
Everybody else is out.
Wow.
The other players have no idea what's brewing here.
He has the best hand.
Hold all tickets. Hold all tickets.
Right now, yes.
I'm the only gambler on this table, I guess.
Oh, God, Barry's so tight. And back in the day, man, season 1, nobody ever 4-bet without the goods.
That's true.
Right? Barry probably never does this with queens.
190 total.
Might not even do it with ace king.
Great Hold'em players can count on the fingers of one hand the
And we'll
times
get to
they've
all your
been able
questions
to get
in the
away
chat
from
right
kings
now.
against
We're gonna
aces.
enjoy this hand and
To complicate this, Sammy
this
has $180,000 at risk. He's only got $12,500 in the pot. He can walk away here a big winner by making the greatest laydown in No Limit Hold'em. If I had to guess, I would say it's 50-50.
how much is Sammy's watch
He
worth?
knows
And
that
how-
Barry's either got
How
aces,
ridiculous. 50,
maybe the other
you got
two
guy with
kings,
chains and the cigarette
and
dangling
maybe a
off his
pair of
mouth. You really
queens.
think he's going to fold
but it
kings right
really
now.
looks like Barry's got the aces.
Does he fold queens?
This guy
That'd
would
be sick
fold
to my
king
stomach.
queen. Sammy Farha.
Also, the fact that flat calling is
51,
never
right?
even considered is hilarious to me. Because he can just call the race to 50,000.
With
and
this
see a
hand,
flop.
Sammy's entitled to take as much time as he wants.
Back to the watch though. How much is Sammy's watch worth?
But he's taking a different
Maybe
sort
more
of
than
time
his
than he did
hand.
earlier today.
Yeah, he's really thinking about this. This is the biggest decision a no-limit Hold'em player can make. It's almost a $400,000 decision. Sammy
See,
tries
that's
to
genuine. Look at Todd.
sneak a glance at Barry, who's
How
not
about
showing
the difference
anything.
in hair between Sammy Farha and Todd Brunson. He's got that ponytail down to his ass.
Go home. It's over. Go home. Let me think.
The other players are like fans that got up and almost left the stadium and now are coming back to their seats.
So you didn't miss anything.
I'm all in.
I call.
Call.
Let's see it. Deal. You got aces, right? I know.
You got
Deal.
queens?
Kings.
Kings?
Deal.
I can't get away from
Aces
kings.
against kings.
Want two flops? 5 and 5?
No.
Let's go.
Sam hasn't turned his
The
up.
pot is a mind-blowing $361,800 in cold hard cash.
Sammy asked Barry if he wanted to put out 5 cards twice, 2 complete hands, and Barry
Run it twice.
very
Denied.
politely declined.
Look at the spectators too. This is
It's
the
amazing.
best
It's
part. They're all
like
trying
a
to get
cold
out,
deck. What
and
do
then
you
they
mean?
realize, oh my
I
God, this
bet
is
you the flop
serious.
ace king's gonna come.
The whole lineup is still hanging out.
Yeah, I'm
and I love
favorite
how
too.
Daniel has like $1 million in front
It's
of him.
aces
Let's
against
listen
kings
to
as
the end
we
of
head
this
to the
clip and then
flop.
we'll break it down.
Oh,
Six,
he got
king,
a king.
eight.
He
Oh,
got
my
a
God.
king. Unbelievable. He got a king.
What are we gonna do now? Want to deal twice?
Barry's going to
No?
need an ace or
Let's
2
do it.
hearts.
Let's go.
Terrible break for Barry Greenstein.
How do they do it?
7 of spades on the turn. Barry's down to the last card. He needs one of the 2 remaining
Hold it.
aces.
Gotta take a deep breath. Hold it.
Sammy's whole attitude has changed a little bit here.
Yeah.
3 of diamonds on the river. Sammy Farha wins
it. You gotta get it.
$361,800.
Wow.
Listen. Just relax. Really? What are you talking about? Just get out of here. I hope he's not playing tomorrow.
I think it's my
That's
favorite
amazing.
part. You know who he's talking to there.
Oh yeah, Sean Chacon.
Well, no, but Farha obviously pissed off what Chacon just said there in the moment, and then Farha looks directly off to the side at Maury and says, "I hope he's not playing tomorrow."
Yeah, that's definitely
Yeah.
Demori Eskandani, Poker Hall of Famer, who is obviously partly responsible for the success of high stakes poker. I mean, this hand is just out of control. In the current climate, there's so many other ways where this hand plays out, but at the end of the day, it is aces versus kings, and going broke there isn't a bad thing. Brent, Barry Greenstein just saying straight up no when Sammy Farha asks to run it twice might be one of my favorite heroic moments that backfires so hard in his face
Yeah.
that he'll still feel it probably.
And I think he was so caught up in the moment and himself. And Farha even said after he spikes the king, "Okay, you want to run another board?"
Right.
Barry still says no.
Says
like, bro,
it's right there.
You say yes to that
It's
question.
a free roll, right?
You say yes to that question. Yeah, like you have a shot now. You're dead. You run another board if the guy offers it to you after you've lost the pot. It's ridiculous.
I mean, the fact that Sammy Farha even does that goes to show that he has that gambler mentality of like, I'd love to gamble with you, but I'm also, we're also just friends here.
Right.
And Barry just stiff arms him, even though he's drawing almost dead.
Aces weren't great to Barry in high stakes poker,
No,
were they?
no.
Tom Dwan bluffed him.
Was
this one.
Was Barry Greenstein one of the biggest losers in high stakes poker?
There has to be stats out there, right? Can we track down the stats to see how much he lost? We don't see much of Barry Greenstein these days.
Haven't seen him
Maybe
in a long
little
time.
PTSD from high stakes poker.
The Robin Hood of poker.
Yeah, well, I would get rid of the Robin Hood title because now you got to start collecting and winning that money. You can't give it all away, Remko.
Exactly, that's very true. Wow, let's hear your guys' thoughts in the chat on this hand. Do you believe this is one of the best hands ever on high stakes poker? Of course, we've got more hands to show you guys in the coming weeks, but in my opinion, this is one of the classics, especially because the way Sammy acts. You can see him like almost crumple in his chair when he finds out that Barry has aces, which he thinks he has, obviously. But then when the king spikes on the flop, his tension in his face and in his shoulders completely disappears, and all of a sudden it's Sammy's show.
Yeah, and there was no way in hell he was considering folding. I don't know what took him so long. I guess maybe trying to muster up the courage, the decision. It is the last hand of the night.
Right.
But he knows the cameras are rolling. Are they really going to – if he folds – and they show that episode sort of close on that note, does he really want to live that legacy of folding kings? And I don't know. I mean, are you a hero if you fold kings in that spot?
The biggest question is Barry ever bluffing? He's not.
You can't get bluffed.
No,
right?
no.
Like, you can't allow yourself to get bluffed. You can't sleep at night if you fold 2 kings, and there's no way. I'm telling you, 100% of the time, Sammy Farha is putting 2 kings in the middle. There's no way he's ever folding.
But then what does he do with queens or jacks? Is he flat calling? Because at the end of the day, there was a raise to 50,000. He could have called the 50 because I think Sammy made it 15, Barry made it 50.
Yeah.
And then Sammy went all in for like 190.
Yeah, I think in today's world,
we're calling all.
There's some other hands that you may just elect to call with. C3, take a look at texture and then decide. But like kings, aces in that spot as played, you're just supposed to lose the money.
Yeah.
You're just supposed to lose the money.
A few comments here in the chat. David White is saying, Negreanu versus Hansen was insane. That was high-stakes poker, right? Yes, it was. A quads versus full house. That'll be on the show very likely next week.
Actually, you know what? I want to know from chat, what hands do you guys want to see? Because we're going to run hands,
yes,
Remko.
We are.
Every week, I want to go through a hand like this. We're going to break it down, give you guys in the chat a chance to see some of this high-stakes poker action, some of the archive stuff. Let us know in the chat. What do you want to see? What hands? What are your favorite memories? We'll bring them back for you guys and go through them.
Matt Morgan asking, will the new High Stakes Poker be hour-long episodes like it was, or will it be live-streamed, or both? Brent, can we speculate on this? How do you...
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. Matt, I can't give you an honest answer there. What I can tell you is that we want to replicate that old show as close, as similarly as possible because we know it was so great. So TBD, keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. People also still speculating in chat on the coronavirus. There's so many takes to have, and it's just a waiting game at this point. I think we've sort of said enough on the subject as it is, and we'll sort of revisit it next week on the show. Brent, what I want to move into is a few statements that I have for you.
All right,
and
statements. What do you mean?
People at home, please play along. Yes or no is your only possible answer.
We're doing the yes or no game again?
We're doing the yes or no game again.
Okay.
At the end of these 5, you can pick one to give some extra context on. And last week we went deep on Stu Unger, and I will pick one to go deeper on. So are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. All right, first one. Is a WSB bracelet event going to take place in Las Vegas in 2020?
Yes.
Is the cancellation of the WSOP going to make people realize that there's more to the summer than grinding inside the Rio?
No.
Is the private game climate in high-stakes circles in Vegas ruining live poker?
No.
The Global Poker Awards...
And it's reserved game, not private game. There's no private games.
Reserved games.
Get it right.
I got to brush up my vocabulary. The Global Poker Awards need to be overhauled.
Overhauled?
Yes.
What does that mean? Like changed?
Changed.
Completely changed?
Completely changed.
I think overhauled is a difficult word.
It's too big?
It's too much for me.
What if it's changed?
Changed, I could get behind.
So, yes is your answer.
I'm going to go yes.
Okay, and final one. Is there a chance Phil Ivey plays on the new season of High Stakes Poker?
Is there a chance?
Yes.
I can say yes to anybody in the world.
Okay.
Is there a chance?
That's positive news. That's all I wanted to stay on. All right, pick your poison. Which one would you like to provide some extra context to?
I would like to provide extra context to my Global Poker Awards answer, saying that it should be overhauled, because I don't think overhauled is correct, but it should absolutely be changed. And here's why.
Okay.
I was there. I presented Broadcaster of the Year. Congratulations, Nick Schulman, by the way. The GOAT, as always. I don't think anybody's surprised with that.
Right.
But and I reached out to Eric Danis. I guess we're going to call him Eric Denis now.
Yes.
Denis. If we can't get more than 10 poker players to show up to the Global Poker Awards, then what are we doing? What are we doing? Can we get players there, please? And I know we had some conflicts come up. I know we had some events that came up after the fact that this award show was presented. But Remko, imagine going to the Academy Awards and there's no actors there.
Right.
Right? Imagine going to the NBA awards show and there's no players there. You're just giving out these awards, or if you do give them out, not even a video accompanies it. I don't even know how many players didn't send in a video, to accompany it. So my goal next year, I want to help out with Erik as much as I can.
And I think planning is a big part of it, right?
Yeah, and I want to encourage players. Guys, come in, man. Come on, let's make this about you guys. This is about the players.
Right.
Players first in this industry. It's always been that way. It's always going to be that way. If it wasn't for the players, we wouldn't even be here doing this silly show right now.
That's very true, and this is a silly show, and I'm glad you brought it up. But then looking at the awards itself, let's say there's no conflicts on the calendar because a lot of players are in Sochi right now, and those events have been massive. So, we'll dive into those towards the end of the show. If the timing is ideal, do you think the show in its current format has enough awards for the players to draw them out? And do you feel as though there might be some awards on your mind that should be added or considered?
Oh, I think we can certainly do more to make sure that it is a player-focused show.
Right.
We can work on categories. We can work on awards. And the best part is Eric Denis is open to all of that.
Right.
He has busted his ass for I don't know how many years now, since it was in L.A. and now it's here in the Poker Go studio. He's worked very hard at putting this out, and usually he cries every time he opens the show. So that tells you how emotional he is and how invested he is in these awards. So, yeah, the answer to that is of course. We can always recalibrate. I say we. Eric, whoever is behind it, can always recalibrate, figure out what we can do to constantly improvise and improve that show going forward.
So you were there. You were on site. How do you look back at the awards, the ceremony? There were some appetizers. We had some drinks. It was a good time.
A lot of cocktails.
A lot of cocktails.
A lot of cocktails were had. I had a great night. Had a lot of fun. I'm always going to dress up as some sort of cowboy theme, probably the same jacket every single year. Shout out to Amarillo Slim,
yes,
Doyle Brunson, the cowboys who came before us in this industry, the cowgirls as well. That's just my thing. I like to have fun. I'm going to troll it a little bit. I'm going to make sure to throw needles and jabs at everyone's way.
A few awards while on the subject, I just want to throw at you. How cool was Miami John accepting the Hen and Mob Award? He was so proud and moved by this, cashing over 500 times, one of the guys with the most results in live poker history. Seeing Miami John there, it sort of felt both out of place but also kind of perfect.
I think that's spot on. I wasn't really sure what was happening. I honestly had never really looked at Miami John's resume very, very closely. And
multiple bracelets?
Yeah, a lot of bracelets. He plays everything under the sun. He's probably at the Orleans right now grinding something. Johnny Chan also there. I mean, Johnny Chan, that to me was really funny.
The Icon Award.
He wins the Icon Award, but then he's the only one in the building that wasn't kind of dressed up. He had on some sort of Hawaiian shirt with just jeans and like a Super Bowl 17 hat. Just some classic Super Bowl hat. The first thing he said, he gets up there, he's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you poker players wore anything other than hoodies, and I'm up here in this. I feel a little out of place." And he was very, he accepted that award, I thought, very well, graciously. Fucking Johnny Chan, man.
Amazing.
Just a staple, an icon. If there's a Mount Rushmore in poker, I was talking about this with my brother-in-law, with Will O'Connor.
Right.
Shout out brother-in-law. Give me your Remko, and I'm going to get off topic here, but I want your Mount Rushmore. And is Johnny Chan on your Mount Rushmore? I'll give you, how many are on Mount Rushmore? 5?
There's 4, right?
There's 4. So let's go. I'll give you 5. We'll do an added one.
Okay, so I have put some thought into this because it is a really interesting topic. But Brent, I feel as though the Mount Rushmore of poker, because of how a poker career spans much longer than like a professional athlete would, for instance, or a president who only has to be responsible for the country for only 4 or 8 years. I find it really hard to do this across different eras.
Don't overthink it. Give me 5
it-
players that belong in the Mount Rushmore. This is who's going to be up there in the fucking carved out mountains that we're
Okay.
going to look at when we drive by the PokerGo studio every day in Las Vegas.
So Red Rock is going to be the face.
I don't
of these
know.
five
There's mountains all over Vegas. We're going to carve these guys out. 5 of them. We can do one more. Not just 4, 5.
Okay, so
5.
Also while I'm going to mention these names, and Brent put me on the spot here, I want you guys in the chat to also give us your Mount Rushmore of poker, and somehow we added a 5th face to this lineup. So let's do 5. I'm going to start. I'm going to go Doyle Brunson.
Doyle.
I feel like there's no way around him. I'm going to go Daniel Negreanu.
Negreanu.
Yes. I'm going to go Phil Ivey.
Yes.
I'm going to go Phil Hellmuth.
Yes.
And then the 5th one. See, this is interesting. The 5th spot, I think, is up for debate. I can go many different ways with this. Based on trackable results, there's probably a few obvious names. Wow.
I will tell you right now that the 4 you've said are 4 of mine as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page with those 4.
Yeah.
I feel like chat can also agree with that. The 5th one, wow. I think there's a case to be made for Johnny Chan, for Chip Reese, Stu Unger. Talent alone is something that I think...
That's why I gave you 5. I don't think
Right.
4 was fair.
Right, so the 5th one, wow. I can also go new age with this, but of course we can still project ahead at the longevity of people's careers. Wow, this is stuff. Okay, I'm going to say Erik Seidel.
You're going Seidel.
Seidel.
Wow.
Longevity,
Over Johnny Chan.
results, 4th on the all-time money list,
Okay.
if my math's correct. I think it goes Kenny, Bonomo, Negreanu,
Over Chip
Seidel.
Reese.
Yes, Seidel. Has done it for multiple decades, is still doing it at the highest stakes. He is still competing there with the GTO Wizards. I'm going to go Seidel.
That's reasonable. I mean, obviously you can make a case for any of these guys, right? And I think this is very hard for me. And oh my God,
The first 4 you're angry.
the first 4 I agree with
Okay.
entirely. The chat's interesting. Sorry Mom saying Kerry Katz, and that is the sort of spin that I think Sorry Mom is going after here, right? Is modern era, who is really propelling this industry forward?
Right.
And if you look at that resume, Kerry Katz is a pretty good example.
Yeah.
But does he belong alongside the Doyles, the Hellmuths, the Negreanus, the Phil
Seidel.
Iveys, the Erik Seidels? I don't know. That's all about results. That's all about the resumes. Katz obviously no slouch. Doesn't have a bracelet. Doesn't have a World Poker Tour title. Right? I think everyone else on that list has at least multiple.
And also multiple
of these categories.
multiple decades in the game too.
Right. So test of time, if that's a part of Mount Rushmore, I think it certainly has to be. I'm going to stick with Johnny Chan.
Really?
I'm going to go Johnny Chan
Wow.
and leave him there. I think Johnny Chan during that era, during that moment, and Maury Escandani said it so perfectly during the show that, there was just a presence with him, the intuition, the decision making. He's never been, I don't think, a solver in any regard. But I think I got to go with Johnny Chan for that 5th wheel for the Mount Rushmore. And maybe Mount Rushmore is allowed to be changed after a decade, where you can insert
Sure.
or pull someone out.
Sure. I think the interesting case about Johnny Chan is that Maury Escandani said that he is the best natural reader in poker history, which I find fascinating because I can't read anyone for shit. I can barely make up if they're still in the hand or not. So that ability to read people, the natural gift that I think not a lot of people have,
Right.
is worth something, and it's worth less and less over time. And I think it sort of goes without saying that post 06, 07, Johnny Chan hasn't had tons of results.
Yeah.
And I think that he was probably like among the best in the world from maybe 85 until 05.
Right.
20-year stretch.
Right.
Very worthy to be on the Mount Rushmore. But I do think that for Seidel, who came up during the same time, still doing it, even though he lost, of course, heads up against Johnny Chan in the World Series main event. I don't know. I think he has a bit more of a case there because he's still doing it.
Ernie Slater's got a great comment and said, what 5 women? However, I will say, for me, it's unfair to have a Mount Rushmore with just, 5 dudes.
Right.
A lot of women in this industry that are very powerful. The closest one for me is Maria Ho.
Wow.
What she's accomplished. The only thing stopping me from putting her up on Mount Rushmore is no title.
Right.
You got to have a major title. In order to qualify, I think you have to have a major title.
What about Jennifer Harmon?
God, it's so close with her
Competed
too, right?
at the highest level for many decades, still doing it at the highest level.
A fixture in Bobby's room still
Right.
to this day?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Very difficult. I love the Mount Rushmore concept in
Yeah.
poker. Okay, one last one. And you guys in the chat, this was even more difficult.
Oh, wow.
Who stands on top of that mountain? Who's the number one? So you've got your 5. Who do you put at the top and why?
I mean, I think Doyle is the godfather of poker for a reason. I think you could not go around Doyle in this conversation. I think it's impossible to not say Doyle. I think that behind Doyle, there's an argument to be made for everyone for different reasons. I think they've all contributed not only to the game, but also to their own careers over such a long span of time that I think that there's reasonable arguments to be made for all of them. What I think is an interesting question posed in the chat by Aiden, shout out to Aiden, by the way, how much more would Chidwick have to do to get on the Mount Rushmore? So modern era player, you can even replace the name Chidwick with Kuhn or Bonomo or Brent Kenny or Dan Smith if you want to.
Yeah.
What does it take for a modern era player to get in the top 5?
Great question. We've completely omitted a modern era playout with the exception of, and I will say it, Daniel Negreanu.
Yeah.
Still, I know he's been around a long time, but to me, Daniel stands on top of that mountain.
Really?
Ahead
Wow.
of Doyle, ahead of Phil Hellmuth and all of his bracelets. To me, Daniel Negreanu is the one who's absolutely stood the test of time longer than anybody else. Cash games, still a presence. Tournaments, still a presence. Now, he hasn't won a tournament since 2013.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of runner-ups, and
True.
look at how much money he has won post-2013. I would be willing to wager that he is in the top 25 in that regard. I don't know the math on that or the stats, Remko, but I'd put my money there.
Right.
Daniel Negreanu seems like he is still on top of the game even during this modern era of solver poker. Hellmuth is no slouch.
Right.
He can still make runs, but he is not crushing a super high roller field quite like Daniel Negreanu crushes a super high roller bowl field to this day.
That's a very good point. My sort of thought process went into the Mount Rushmore per decade. So if we limit this to only 4 people per decade, it's pretty easy to do this for the 70s and the 80s because there were not as many players. 90s, it gets a lot harder. Then we get into the 2000s and into the 10s. I feel like the list is so long. How do we quantify who is at the top? And
Yeah.
and let's do this exercise for right now. And now I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were doing this for the last 10 years, because the decade just wrapped up, which 4 players from this past decade stand out to you the most as far as, that Mount Rushmore type of, thought process?
The last 4 years?
10 years.
10 years.
The last
Okay.
decade, the 10s.
I'm gonna go with Bryn Kenny. I think he's very easy, especially just recently over the last few years.
Yeah.
I have to go with Chidwick.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm going Phil Galfond.
Wow, I like
as
that.
well. Innovative in another space, how creative he's been with the Galfond Challenge, creating run at once, and just to me is the most outstanding human being that we can point at as an ambassador for this game. I don't think he's ever said a bad word.
Right. True.
He's just an utmost guy. So how many? That's 3.
That's 3. Yeah.
And you need 2 more out of me.
I need 1 more. We're only doing 4 for this one.
You get 1 more out of me.
So there's a few names to consider here. If we're just going on results, which is the easiest thing to track, of course, Bonomo leads the all-time money list. Second now in the all-time money list behind Brent Kenny. So that's a name worth considering. Other guys, David Peters, very under the radar. He's all he does is win.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of these guys are going to be left behind. They really are. I would say I'd probably give the nod to Dan Cates ahead of Tom Dwan.
Wow.
Simply because Dan Cates didn't go anywhere. He's been present.
True.
He's been in the game for a while. He's playing a variety of games, not just No Limit Hold'em as well. He's in Bobby's room playing all the big games. So, folks that we are forgetting, a guy like John Hennigan.
Kuhn.
Guy like Jason Kuhn, obviously. Nick Schulman has got to be up there in the conversation. From what he does in the industry, commentator, also still an elite player. The list is just so long. That's sort of the beauty of this industry is I don't know if we're ever going to have a perfect list for this. But
Mercer has been gone for about 2 years being a dad now, but the 8 years prior to that, he would have been on there, no brainer, right?
Again, I agree. I think to me it's sort of like Fedor.
Yeah.
There was that era, that 5-year stretch where
Yeah.
they just completely crushed and destroyed. everything they touched. And Jason also not a one-trick pony. He plays all the games at a very high level.
That's true. Wow, so much to discuss and so many sort of thoughts that I have on this.
Is it time to have a tough conversation?
It probably is.
Yeah.
I think it's time also for me to brainstorm this a bit more and write an article about it and then get shat on by everyone for getting it wrong. But I do think this is a fascinating thing. If you guys enjoy the conversation and if you guys like the content, please give us a thumbs up on this video and subscribe to the channel. We are live every single week, Tuesday, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, and 9 p.m. Central European time. A few more topics here to discuss on this week's show, Brent. And one of them is that I still have one of the topics to get back to here for you because you picked the Global Poker Awards that spiral into this conversation.
Oh, yeah, we had another portion of this, huh?
We were going to get into
I tried
this.
to get out.
Yeah, you're trying to duck this one. The question that I wanted to pose you is the reserved game climate, and I use the proper terminology this time, ruining high-stakes poker, live poker in Las Vegas. You said no. Give me your thoughts on why you think this is not an issue.
Well, it's sensitive, and I'm certainly not going to say that it's not an issue.
Right.
And we have a video proof of that coming up here after I get done here. But
right.
The fact of the matter is, this is what players, the recreational players, prefer. This sort of atmosphere,
and we're talking like the highest tier.
Yes,
right?
And it sort of trickles down, right? I don't think you're going to find a reserved game in a casino that's going to be, 5-10, 10-20, 2-5, 1-2. I think all that is untouched, from what I understand, and it has to start with the policies that are set in stone within, the brick and mortar casino. So if those policies are in place, so be it.
Right.
That's how it's going to be, and every single recreational player, fun player, business player that wants to play 25, 50 plus, they prefer this sort of environment.
Right.
If you're someone local that has been cutting their teeth and has been grinding it out and chasing the poker dream for a decade in Vegas, and this sort of atmosphere has changed and shifted, I just think you have to shift with it. Otherwise you're going to be a freedom fighter, and you're going to be out there battling and up against it for quite some time because that policy is in place, Remko. It's not going anywhere. So you can either figure out a way to make sure that you are having a great, fun, honest game, creating a wonderful environment for players, and sort of just have to, adhere to the conditions that are presented to you.
Right.
And I think it can be done in a reasonable way that isn't upsetting. And right now we're in this weird flux where poker players are pissed off about it, and then there's another group of poker players over here that are totally okay with it. Somewhere right here in the middle, that's where I am.
All right,
I was pissed,
right.
And now I'm coming over here I think I'm okay with this as long as everyone is happy.
Right. So we have a clip, and I would say parental advisory. There's some strong language in this clip. It's Will Jaffe speaking very passionately.
He's so good.
After listening to a podcast. Brent, I'm not sure if this is a podcast that you and I did, but he did listen to a podcast. Let's roll the clip of Will Jaffe talking about how he feels about the reserved game atmosphere. All right, Brent. I mean, the easiest question for me to ask you, is he right?
It sounds like there's no audio on the video, Remko.
Oh, there was no audio?
There's no audio, so we didn't get any of the audio on the video. We'll talk to our tech team about that. Well, shit. There goes the fun in that conversation, huh?
I hope people heard us laugh because it was really funny.
Yeah.
We don't have to repeat the language that Will Jaffe used, but basically he was saying that...
Are we going to roll it again? Producer John, you guys want to roll that again? I'm trying to get word from the back. I don't know, guys. Bear with us.
I think we're just going to keep the show moving. Brent, we're not going to repeat what Will Jaffe said, but I do want to sort of repeat his, I guess, thoughts in a sense on the matter. He said that it's no longer networking when it comes to appealing to these players that want to play in these types of reserved games. It is, as he called it, type of fellatio.
I think you can say it, Remko. You're quoting. He said dick sucking.
Dick sucking, yeah.
It's not networking. It's obviously it's in jest. He's having fun with it, but
Right.
You know, he makes a point
Yes.
that it just sucks. And I think his overall point is you're a professional poker player, and he's one of those guys that has been around, cut his teeth from the online world into the live world. It now sucks that, man, this is what I have to do to play in a really good game. I just have to, you know, schmooze people, be nice to people. But that's the ecosystem now, right? That's the environment. So, yes, it is essentially what you're going to have to do if you want to play in some of these games that are offering reserved gaming atmospheres. And it's just the nature. That's where we are right now.
One thing I want to ask you about this, though, is if you are an aspiring player that plays live, you're making your way up the ranks, you know, you're 2-5, you go to 5-10, the cap you reach as a player who wants to move up and who is beating the games is probably sort of around the 10-20 limit, because anything bigger than that is really hard to get access to. Do you think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from, and is there any way to combat that?
Well, I think a lot of the frustration comes from there were great 10 and a quarter, 25, 50 games, and you could just walk into your local casino and the same sort of recreational players would come in and they'd sit down and you would have a great game. You know, that entire system has changed. So whenever, and I don't know where it started, I don't know when it started, but whenever the reserved gaming policy came into place, that changed that sort of environment.
It's not really a policy. It is more of the way the ecosystem developed, where the players that I guess had a say in the matter, the ones that were bringing the big bucks, they wanted to play with their friends and the people that they enjoy playing with.
Yeah, and I mean, essentially, it's those players, the power of those recreational players that said, you know what, I don't want to play with this guy, but I do want to play with you. What can be done about it?
Right.
And that's essentially where we are to this day. Will we see it shift back in another way, in another direction? Maybe. But I do think that, unfortunately, right now, and I don't even necessarily think that unfortunately is the fair word, but I just think that right now, the state of the game, this is what's required. You want to be a professional poker player and move up the ranks, and you want to go to your casino and try and go from 10 and a quarter to 25.50 to 50.100, then you better get used to this system in place.
Right. And do you think that this is more prevalent or I want to say almost like a Vegas-specific problem, or do you think that poker rooms around the world are dealing with this?
No, I don't know about around the world, but I know
in the U.S.?
I know it's in a lot of major U.S. cities and casinos. I've talked to, friends in Florida, East Coast. It's everywhere, and that, again, it's just where we are right now. And you can be pissed off, you can moan, you can groan, but if you want to play in the game, you better figure out how to do it.
All right. A few more quick hitters here left on the show as we wrap up this podcast, and we're back every week, so in case you missed anything, go back and watch the rest of the show, but also make sure to tune back in next week as we are live again on Tuesday. Brent, the Party Poker Super High Roller Series in Sochi is very well attended, has generated some great winners, and it's all in the lead-up to Super High Roller Bowl Russia, which, of course, is coming up towards the end of this week. First and foremost, Brent, short deck, 50K event, 45 entries, 765K up top. Badziakuski winning.
The milkman does it again, huh?
Winning a massive event there.
Cream of the crop.
What does this say about these types of super high roller events? Does it go as far as saying, like, as long as everyone who wants to play is in the group chat, these events should be moving around like the circus? Because at the end of the day, when people show up, these things are fucking huge, and they're really fun to follow.
Well, I think it's kind of similar to what we just touched on, right?
Right. Yeah, it's true.
These tournaments are not set up by the 10 elite pros in the world that want to play super high rollers. There's a cluster of folks that have way too much money, that are recreational, that also want to get involved and play for money that moves them. They don't want to play in $1,000 buy-in tournaments. They want to play in $100,000 buy-in tournaments. They want to feel that competition, and it's great. I think it's wonderful for that ecosystem. If you're fortunate enough to be a part of the super high roller crew, then good for you. I don't know how long it's going to last. Let's hope it lasts for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
But it's going to last until the well runs dry, essentially, until all of the recreational players say, you know what, I've had it, I'm done.
But the beauty as well is that we are seeing, and you and I have been in this industry for a long time, that new names pop up every couple of years, and those names will then have a taste, and they want to travel, and they want to play all these big events. So to me, it feels as though it's never going to run out.
No.
The location might change.
Right.
That's sort of how it's been playing out. The events, by the way, are all live on Poker Go. Live reporting also available on Poker Central. We've sent Brandon all the way to Sochi. That was quite an adventure for him to get all the way out there from Canada, but he's doing a great job on the live reporting. So if you want to follow along with the day one coverage, you can do that on Poker Central and then dive into the live streams on Poker Go as well. As we speak, as we are doing this live, tomorrow the 100K No Limit Hold'em event kicks off. That's going to be 2 days of action. Of course, the final table on Poker Go. And then there's another 50K short deck, event number 7, before Brent on the 14th or the 13th of March.
13, 14, 15, super high roller bowl, Russia, coverage on Poker Go for the 14th and 15th. Yours truly, myself, along with Jeff Platt, will be on the mic, and we're going to be doing the commentary.
You guys will be quarantined in this room.
That's right.
Doing the commentary.
Exactly in this room.
Exactly. So 3 straight days of high-stakes action from Russia with live reporting and streaming. So keep your calendars wide open for that action. Given the turnout of these events in the lead-up, I'm very hopeful for a great turnout for this event. As we speak, the short deck is going on, 14 players remaining. Some names in there. Phil Ivey, you might have heard of him. Paul Fua, you might have heard of him. Sam Greenwood, Seth Davies, they're all competing in this event. Huge prize pool once again, and short deck is not dying. So I guess everybody still loves to play in all these events. This wraps up our podcast, Brent. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a guest on the show. You've been talking.
Yeah, we've got some interesting angles for a guest. We could get one live in here with us, and then we're also working on some tech circumstances where we might be able to live sort of Skype in somebody from across the pond. And I've got a few people that I've been discussing with that want to join the show.
So Phil Ivey on the show next week. Is that what you said?
I did not say Phil Ivey on the show next week. No.
Okay, we'll try. All right, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know how you feel in the comments about the podcast. We'll be back next week with another show, 12 p.m. Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, or 9 p.m. Central European Time. For Brent Hanks, my name is Remko, and this was the Poker Central Podcast.